Hi, this is Randy Finney with Right Side of the Chart, and today is Tuesday, August 1st, 2017. Wanted to take a look at the global equity markets and everything outside the U.S. I have a watch list here of what I call the EWs. These are various ETFs, all from iShares. This first one you're looking at the chart is, well, let's just go in order here. I have these sorted by market cap. And they all start with the letters EW, and then you have EWJ for Japan, and there's various ones out there. You can see a total of 20 here in my watch list. So I'll go through these in descending order of market cap. However, I'd encourage you to hang in there to the end if you're interested, because there's some of the best trading ops really are in the bottom half here. I'm just going through these in order of market cap because the bigger countries are going to appear up top. You know, a lot of the you know, Japan, Germany, the UK, all that, and then we'll get down into some other ones. And again, I'll share some trading ops. So this video serves two purposes. It kind of gives you a take on where the global equity markets are likely headed. As most of you know, the majority of countries, their markets trade in relative synchronicity. You know, when the U.S. is going up, most overseas countries are going up, especially the developed countries. Again, you get down to the smaller third world countries, emerging markets, there's a much lower correlation there. But if we go through these charts, I'm going to make the case here for that they're getting a little bit frothy, and the technicals are indicating, you know, pullbacks coming soon. Doesn't have to be the end of this strong uptrend. Anything's possible, it could be, but at the very least, I'm looking for a correction in some of these, and then some don't look so bad. So let's go through these. As always, if you're a gold member of the site, I encourage you, if you want to trade, if you live in any of these countries, trade these countries, or any stock, security, or index for that matter, if I can chart it, I'll be more than glad to render you know, give you a chart with some technical levels to watch, possible price targets, things like that. So again, just drop me a line in the trading room, and I'll be glad to either expand on any of these charts I'm covering today, or cover another one for you. So there's EWJ. I'll go down through these again in descending order of capitalization. This one has, what stands out to me, we have potential but not confirmed divergence. I mean, technically speaking, there's negative divergence. And negative divergence is when price is making a higher high and the indicators down below are making lower highs, and that's the case right now. However, they're still pointing up, so the potential is there that they continue higher, take out those previous reaction highs, and then that divergence is negated or taken out or erased, however you want to call it. That's not what I think will happen, but right now we have absolutely zero sell signals in Japan. The trend is higher, so I'm only on watch right now for a reversal here. If the EWJ reverses soon, there's a minor uptrend line to watch. At the very least, I think we come in and revisit this uptrend line again here, this primary uptrend line, maybe get a bounce. There's a couple support levels to watch. If we break down, maybe we come and hit this support level. And we could keep moving lower. We could kick back and back test that trend line at that point, then move lower. A lot of possibilities. Hard to say what's going to happen, but first things first. Let's look for a break of this minor uptrend line, and most importantly, let's wait and see if these divergent highs are confirmed soon. And by that would mean that EWJ needs to start moving lower really pretty soon before those previous reaction highs are getting taken out. So there's one. It's very stretched, quite an uptrend. This is also right here. We had the most overbought reading we've had in at least the past 2 years. These charts are all daily time periods. They cover 2 years. Every chart we're going to look at. We're not going to go into the weeklies today. So there it is. Very overbought, negative divergence. Haven't seen divergence in a while in EWJ, and it's reflected here with the trend. Trend indicator still bullish too right now with the PPO above the zero line. I'll talk a little bit more on that in a bit. EWG, this is Germany. We have a nice trend line here. Now there was a brief whipsaw signal, a little breakdown that lasted for about a week or two right there. However, there's a lot of reactions. If you look at this trend line, you see reactions along the way, quite a few reactions. So this is a very valid trend line. Prices snapped back up there on a big gap, and have traded above there since, but then broke down here. So that was a sell signal. That was a bearish technical event. We also had negative divergence. You can see there at that most recent high. There's the divergent line. So when we put in this high, there was negative divergence. Now the question is this move? We already got a correction in Germany. Is that enough to satisfy those divergences? Technically, yes. It's not a very deep move, but it's too early to say if the correction is over. Here's what I'm watching. Besides the trend line, the fact we're well below that trend line, there's a couple things. Okay, number one, I'm watching these lines here. That's that same line I drew the divergence. However, this also forms what we call an ascending broadening wedge pattern. It's a broadening wedge, as you can see, and it's ascending. It's pointing up. And one of the criteria you look for, ideally, you want to see at least 3 reactions on the down on the bottom line, 2 up top. We have a few here, 1, 2, possibly 3. So that is, technically speaking, it's a fully mature ascending broadening wedge pattern. Those are inherently bearish, but like anything else, support is support until unless broken. And bearish chart patterns, especially when the primary trend is up, you have to be careful, and you want to put as much evidence, have as much evidence in your favor to support a case to short. So sell signal would come on a break of the ascending broadening wedge pattern. There's also an alternative method I've talked about in the past. It's called a partial rise, where you short when you get about halfway up within the ABW pattern. You can put a stop not too far above it. That gives you a much better entry price. And if prices reverse and go on to break down, then that's a pretty bearish sign. So again, this is a sell signal. If we get that, we're looking at a potential price target. If we backfill the gap, we're coming back down to about 28.50. There's also a reaction just above there around the $29 level, and that's where I'd expect EWG to go. A couple other things to note on here are the trends. I talked about the trend indicators a minute ago. I talk about these a lot. The signal line on the PPO, you can also use a MACD. It's going to work very similar. The signal line is the white line, and that does a really good job of identifying the trend at the time. So we recently had a bearish crossover, and right now the signal line is still below the 0 level. Again, I use a signal line because it's the last of the 2 to cross. The blue line or the PPO line will cross first, but by using the signal line, it helps filter out whipsaw signals. So right now the trend is bearish. Just as this point from here to here, you can see it was above and it told you the trend was bullish. So it kept you long, or told you we were in a bullish uptrend throughout most of that run. Back here it said the trend was bearish. We actually crossed over somewhere back here, and it was. So you can see it's done a great job. I won't highlight all the uptrends. I'll just cover some of the downtrends. You can see there, downtrend, trend is bearish here, and the trend was bearish leading up to that, and you can see to the left of the chart prices were moving down. So you can see the uptrends and downtrends. So that's what I'm looking at. Let's look for trend is currently bearish, although we're right on the line. This could prove to be a whipsaw signal. So let's wait for a sell signal there. And there's also some support around the $30 level. But again, if you're interested in trading Germany, just let me know. I won't spend any more time on that chart now. EWY, this is South Korea. Here's a divergent high. Sort of a price channel, almost a wedge type pattern. We had a bearish rising wedge back here with a divergent high that led to about a 12% correction in EWY. Right now we have the divergence isn't as large in scope, but it's more steep. You can see the downtrend line on the divergence, and it's confirmed as well. So this one has a confirmed divergent high. We've recently made a bearish cross on the PPO, and the RSI is turned down while prices are making a higher high. So you can see on the chart above, I have a few different support levels that need to go. Most important is this uptrend line, but we also have we're back testing, or we just back tested that first horizontal support line. So look for a break below both of those. That would bring us to this level most likely, followed by reaction. If it's a swift move and you get a bounce back, this would then become resistance, so that would be another shorting op. and my final target would be down there around 63. That would be, let me measure it for you. That would be from where we're at right now. If we go back down to the 63 or so level, maybe there's a little gap above there. Yeah, about a 10% drop in South Korea. EWZ Brazil, I don't have much of an opinion on this chart. I wouldn't be long or short. This one has been grinding around in a sideways trading range now for about a year. The next major trend is a period of consolidation will most likely come on either upside break, which would be bullish, or a downside break. You do have some whipsaws to the downside. So again, I don't have much of an opinion on Brazil right now. It's just slogging around sideways. Better fish to fry, in my opinion. EWC Canada. Here's Canada. We had a rising wedge back here. Divergent high number one, divergent high number two, I should say. About a 10% correction. Right now we have negative divergence. It's not very steep, but it's pretty long in scope. In other words, from this reaction high here, we just made a slightly higher high, and that was a divergent high. That divergence is also confirmed or about to be. You can see the PPO rolling over now, poised to make a bearish cross on any more downside in Canada. So that's EWC. Who knows where that one goes? Not one of my favorites, to be honest with you. I think at best we come down first, come down here to the intersecting uptrend line and horizontal support level, maybe get a reaction, and then watch it from there. And also keep in mind, you watch all these, especially the developed countries, including the U.S., you watch them, and if one or two breaks down, you might not want to short it. But if you see the majority of those breaking key support levels, trend lines, high probability sell signals, then it's a good chance they're all going to go down, because again, they trade in roughly in synchronicity. EWT, there's Taiwan, negative divergence right here. Here's an uptrend line to watch. So there's your sell signal if and when that comes. I just don't think the risk to reward on a lot of these is good at this time. If you're long, you can stay long, ride this trend as long as it continues. But these divergences indicate that trend is waning, the momentum is waning. That's what these are, price and momentum indicators like the PPO. And so there's your sell signal, break of that trend line. Here's your potential targets, and I do think that trend line will go. From where we're at today, we're looking at about a 13% drop in Taiwan ultimately. And again, I expect reactions at each of those lines. Those are interim targets, support levels, or we'll probably get a bounce along the way. EWU, this is the United Kingdom. I don't see much on this chart right now. Well, you know what? I do see a few things. Here's what I think is likely to happen. First of all, I should point out the previous divergent highs. Again, I just can't underestimate the importance of just being patient, sitting back, waiting for the highest probability trade entries. Those are divergent highs and divergent lows. Some of these charts I have the divergent lows marked. Here was a divergent high, clearly divergence, negative divergence, and you had a drop of about 16 or so percent. That might have been Brexit related, doesn't matter, it was built into the charts. That's the important thing. As I often say, the news and charts and the fundamentals and technicals go hand in hand. It's usually the technicals are in place, and then you get a news event, some type of catalyst, and that triggers the bearish or bullish technicals that were already in place. So now, where do I think EW is going? Well, I'm not sure. I can tell you this. If a break of that trend line, especially a solid break and close, would certainly be bearish. That would be a sell signal. I do see the possibility, and would actually prefer to see this if I were looking to short EWU, would be to see one more thrust higher. Let me draw it out for you here. So here's your potential divergence, but as I said, this is potential because the PPO is still heading higher and could head higher. So an ideal scenario would to see push up a little more, then turn back down, putting in place, confirming these negative divergences, and see this would give you a rising wedge type pattern. So a move up, marginal new high, take out these highs, and it can only be either an equal or slightly higher high is all it takes. And then when you see prices reverse, be great to see some type of bearish candlestick, but be careful. I don't give candlestick patterns too much validity on these overseas tracking ETFs because, as I said earlier, their markets are trading when we're closed. So you're always going to have a gap due to the price differential. These ETFs start trading at 9:30 Eastern time in the U.S. And so therefore the candlesticks are not representative. You want to look at the actual index itself, like the FTSE, for example, if you're trading the UK. All right, so that's one possible scenario. But again, watch this trend line, and that warns that prices are maybe headed lower there. EWH, Hong Kong, this is pretty clean. There's a bearish rising wedge pattern. Whether it continues, how much higher that continues, again, these divergences are only potential in this one right now. They're not yet confirmed. Some countries we already do have confirmed divergence. If we can start to reverse soon in EWH, then you would have confirmed divergence. You'd have a bearish rising wedge. You might get one more reaction off that line and then a breakdown. That's not where my target was. I probably target somewhere in here. That wedge doesn't measure down that far. Just trying to show you the gist of what will happen. So that's what to watch for on EWH. Maybe one more thrust up in the wedge if that downtrend line is hit. EWA Australia, we had a pretty well-defined downtrend line generated here. We had a divergent low. You can see the bullish divergences in place. That preceded that huge rally in Australia on EWA. We have a fairly well-defined, I'm not crazy about that trend line, but there's quite a few reactions. 1, 2, 3. So what happened here is a couple things. First, we broke down below the trend line right here. We came back up, back tested here, came down again, and we're close to back testing once more. We're also looking at another divergent high because prices have now made a new high over that previous high, and you can see the negative divergence, just like we had negative divergence right here. I didn't have it all drawn out. See the negative divergence on the chart, and there was a drop. I don't know, what was that, about 10% or so? Yeah, about 10%. So this is a breakdown of a even more significant trend line. This is getting pretty stretched and a back test. So if we fail there, we get a reversal, we'll have confirmed divergence, and at minimum I'd expect to move back down to these previous reaction lows right here. There's pretty good support right there. So this would be my price target, around 21.20 or so, something like that. You know, not straight down, probably reaction along the way, but that's a pretty good drop, and that would be about 7.5%. EWW, I really like this one. This is the Mexico Index Fund. Now, you know, I remembered somebody asking earlier in the year, remember on the site, you know, right around here, he thought, wondered if EWW was a short. And actually, I pulled up my reply. You can use the search function. Just type in the symbol, the ticker symbol in the search box, and you can find any mention of that in the trading room or on the front page. So here's that post. You know, it was back 6 months ago. So, you know, right around somewhere in January. And asking if EWW could be a short trade, and I said no, I wouldn't short EWW. And that was back when Trump was, you know, running his mouth about building a wall and making Mexico pay a 20% tariff on imports to pay for it, blah 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 blah. So there was my answer, and I said, in fact, let's see here. Yep, I said I'd be more interested in EW as a long than a short if looking at that time horizon of several months or more. And that was right here back in late January or early February or so. And there it is. You can see that was a long. And there's the divergent low. I didn't put up a chart, but I had mentioned that. And you see these bullish divergent lows. That's trading. It takes time. I sit back and I watch a chart or a stock or a sector for months or even years before engaging it. You know, this is just noise to me. All this is noise. Now I see something. EWW looks like one of the better shorting ops to me. This is a very clean uptrend line. Quite a few reactions. It's a clean bearish rising wedge. Negative divergence. That divergence is confirmed, just as it was confirmed back here, bullish divergence, and that led to that rally. So here's one with a good deal of downside, and all we need is a trigger with a break of this uptrend line. Targets, again, maybe I'll put it up as an official trade idea. Just looking, I'm glancing this chart as I'm doing this video. There was a downtrend line back here, and I believe that goes to the left of the chart. So I think we probably come back in and back test that trend line. So my target will be somewhere around here. Let's just call it the $52 area, and that would be a decent, trade in EWW. That would be about a 6-7% correction. EWL. Switzerland, we had a divergent high right here. I should have drawn it out there. A small divergent high, and it did play out for a correction. Started to break through this trend line, snapped back up, tried to regain it. So we've been flirting around with that. That should really be tightened up like that. There it is. That's a better fit on that trend line. So there was your divergent high, breakdown, and a back test, and that PPO has turned back down, threatening to make a bearish cross. But there's a good example. Look how the white line has come in and just bounced right off that 0 level and told you so far the trend is bullish. And even though we had a breakdown and a back test, that trend is still bullish. So a couple things to look for here. Look for a bearish cross with that signal line, the 9 EMA. Look for any impulsive selling here after the failure on that back test, and especially an undercut of these recent lows. If that happens, I think it's safe to say that Switzerland or EWL is coming all the way back down here to about the 30 to 20-ish level. Yeah, that was EWL. EWP, Spain, bearish rising wedge, negative divergence, not yet confirmed, so looking for that confirmation. And once you get the confirmation, especially with the breakdown, there is some price support right here as well. This one broke out to a new high recently. If it takes that level out, it has failed that breakout. There's some support there. There's a gap right there to be filled, but I think ultimately this one comes down to the bottom of that gap. So that'd be a pretty good move in EWP. Okay, a couple more. EWI. This is Italy. Here's an uptrend line, 1, 2, 3 reaction so far. There's a smaller, minor, pretty well-defined uptrend line. Potential negative divergence, still waiting to be confirmed. So what we need to see on this one, your sell signal here would be a break of this minor uptrend line. At the very least, I think we come in to backtest or to retest this trend line, get another reaction there, and possibly go on to break it. So you can have a quick trade there, maybe cover on that trend line on or about there, and then recycle back in short. Or if you want to just short it here, put a stop and just try to ride out the counter trend bounces. This one may very well be heading back down to about this level here, somewhere in that zone. I think that's where it goes over time. EWS, Singapore, I don't see a lot on there. EWQ, France, bearish rising wedge, divergent high, very steep divergence. Looks like the PPO is starting to roll over, pending a bearish cross. Clean separation on the MACD lines. That's what I like to see. So this one looks really nice to me. There's some horizontal support here. I'll give you that level, about 28.50, but a big old gap to fill. And there's a previous reaction high back here. So I think ultimately this one can come all the way down here to about the 26.50 level. And that would be a drop of about 10, almost 11% there. We'll call it 10.5%. So not bad. EWM, Malaysia, I don't see a reason to be long or short that one. EWD, rising wedge, confirmed divergence. We're coming down. Looks like the PPO is wanting to curl up here and stay above that 0 level. So the trend's still bullish according to this trend indicator, but we're dancing on this uptrend line. There's a rising wedge, so this thing it looks ripe, meaning it looks ready to pop anytime. Maybe another thrust higher, maybe not. But either way, a break of that trend line would be a sell signal. So it would look something like this. Maybe we get one more thrust up. We'll still have divergence. I can tell you that right now, especially if we turn back down on that thrust up and then go on to break down below the wedge. Now we can break down before then. We already have negative divergence. And either way, a little reaction there and then a move down to that line there. 3 more to cover. EWN, this is Netherlands. Clean bearish rising wedge. Prices are at the top of that now. Negative divergence. PPO starting to curl down. Hasn't yet crossed over to confirm it, but looks to be close. So this is one of my favorites. Look for a move down there, probably have one last reaction on that trend line before it breaks, and I think that one's headed down to there's one support level there, there's the top of a gap there, and then there's the bottom of the gap there, probably over time headed down to close to that $27 level to backfill that gap. EWK, Belgium, same story, potential divergence. It could be confirmed any time now, so I have this line right here just in case it wants to push a little higher, but this thing would have to go quite a bit higher to take out these divergences, so it's almost assured on the next pullback to have confirmed these negative divergences. And you have a nice a pretty well-defined minor uptrend line, so you can set a price alert right here. Let's see, set alert. If that trend line breaks, that will probably send us back down to the bottom of the wedge. It will confirm that negative divergence in doing so. Something like that, maybe a reaction there, one last thrust up, and then a breakdown of the wedge. And ultimately, this one comes into, let's put a line there, very high probability price target right here in my opinion, and that is at about 19 and change, about we'll call it 19.20. And the last one, EWO, Australia. Oh no, I'm sorry, this is Austria. I already covered Australia. EWO, same story. You have a minor uptrend line, negative divergence still pending, so just look for that prices to reverse, confirm that divergence, and same story. A break of this minor downtrend line, that would be your sell signal, and first target would be the bottom of that or the uptrend line, and that's going to also come in more than likely if this broke down soon, roughly with that previous reaction low. So that would be your target zone, that whole area there. Again, depending on if and when prices get down there, and then look for a reaction, and then ultimately, because of this divergent high, I think it's quite possible to see that break down, and then there's a big gap back there to fill. So that would be the final swing target at this point in time. All right, that covers it. That's 20 different countries. If you guys have any questions, just drop me a line. This has been Randy Finney with Right Side of the Chart. Hope you enjoyed it.